This is Eric Rutan of Cannibal Corpse. You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast with Andrew McKay Smith.
G'day everybody, thanks for joining me. In this chat, Mortiis, he takes the spotlight. The catalyst for this chat was the 2018 shows, the first ever across Australia and New Zealand from Mortiis. We delve into his excitement and anticipation for the shows, and he also explores his reflections on signing with Earache. That's a pretty interesting part of this chat, I must say. In addition, we delve into a plethora of other intriguing topics. So here he is, Mortiis. I notice you're playing 3 shows in New Zealand as well, so you've obviously got a fan base over there.
Yeah.
You're playing about 6 shows here in Australia, including Hobart. Hardly anybody ever gets down to Hobart, which is fantastic, in Tasmania.
Yeah, man. I mean, I don't know too much about the scenes in each city. So, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, you know, one place could be fantastic and the next one could bomb. I mean, you never know, right? But I'm pretty much trusting, you know, Martin, who's booking this, and, you know, he's been booking tours before, so I'm assuming he knows what he's doing.
Okay,
so
gotcha.
I'm just fucking excited to go to Australia, to be honest with you. I'll just play anywhere, as long as I can go there. You know?
Well, yeah. I know. Tell me about the sort of set list that you'll be bringing down. Have you got something worked out, or is it one of those things where you'll just wait for fan feedback to see which? Because I understand you've got. I might be using the wrong terminology here, but you've got eras. Is that correct? You've got about 3 or 4 eras in which you draw your music from, and which your albums are allocated.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that was something that you know, like back in the 90s, I was playing a certain style of music, and many years later, someone finally came up with like a sort of like a category for it, which turned out to be a dungeon synth. You know, I didn't call it that back in my days. I mean, I would call it dark dungeon music. I was also making up names for it because there really wasn't any natural category to put me into back in those days, but. Once the 90s were over, I changed my style quite radically, and it became a lot more sort of programmed electronic guitar-based stuff. And I kind of felt like I when I was about to put out The Smell of Rain, which was the first album where I really radically changed my musical style, I kind of felt like I felt like I owed it to these sort of old school fans to at least give them some sort of indication that the album that you might be about to buy is probably not going to sound the way that you expect. So I put this sort of Era 2 little indicator, little piece of text, you know, in the logo. And that's how that got started. I mean, Era 1 would never existed when Era 1 was actually active, if that makes any sense. It only kind of naturally came into existence when I decided to call my new sound Era 2. And then since then, it's just kind of like been this going. It's been kind of evolving. You know, I changed my music style so many times that, you know, eventually I moved on to something I called Era 3 because the music was getting more distorted and noisy and angry. And once again, I felt like people deserve to know this is different.
Yep.
So it's kind of just been carrying on like that, but it kind of reaches a point where it gets a bit silly. I mean, where are we going to go? Like Era 28, you know, it's a bit dumb. So I kind of like cooled down on it. Actually, when I put out one of my last albums called The Great Deceiver, which I felt once again was a rather different album, I actually decided to just call it Era 0 just to fuck with people's heads. What I didn't anticipate was that every journalist I spoke to when I was promoting that record asked me what that meant, and I had no proper response to it.
Did you make up different reasons for every journalist and just put everybody off the path?
That would have been typical me, actually. Just talk a lot of shit for half an hour and not really even knowing what I'm saying. And then somebody confronts me with it 6 months later, and I don't know what to say. And
Did I say that?
You know, look like a fool.
Yeah.
That was me. That was like that day my guitar player was doing all of it. I don't know what he's saying. His English is horrible. No, I do all the press, you know. But I was actually being rather truthful. I just kind of laughed at it and said, like, hey, you know what? Truth be told, I was just fucking with people's heads because I thought that the Era 3, 4, 5, 6, you know, it was just getting a little bit like, well, where's this going to end? I mean, that is the proper response. Where the fuck's it going to end? So I thought it was getting a bit silly. So I just said Era 0, and I didn't expect people to ask me so many questions about it, but there you go. So, that's a long answer and a very, I'm digressing here. In terms of like, the live show, this is a solo thing. I mean, I've gone back to a large degree, I've gone back to my sort of 90s sound.
Right, okay.
I've been thinking about it a lot. Thinking about that a lot in the last couple of years. Like, it was fun to kind of go back to those were simple days. It was just me. I was making all the decisions, no drama, no nothing, and visually it was always very cool with the mask and the outfits and all that stuff. And so I was kind of playing with the idea of returning to that in some form. And then the opportunity came last year when I was offered kind of the 30th anniversary of Cold Mint Industry, which was one of my first record labels, and kind of like a 2-day festival with a lot of really cool bands. So I just kind of jumped at it. And what I did is I kind of reinterpreted my second record from 1994. But I didn't want to just perform it as it was, because a lot of people have heard that record, at least people into that type of music. I felt that would have just been kind of like, okay, here's the record that you've heard a million times before, exactly the same way.
Yeah.
So I just I sat down and re-recorded the whole thing, and I added a lot of new pieces to it, and added new layers, a lot of rhythmical stuff that didn't exist on the first one. Added melodical content. I replaced all the sounds, and just made it sound bigger, more sort of epic, and more like if I had created that record today, that's kind of the way that it would have sounded. And it also came out sounding this time around the way that I kind of wanted it back in those days, but I didn't really know how to make it happen.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So, you're a mature musician now, and you've been around a long time.
Yeah. I'm worse than ever. I'm like the worst musical theorist of all time, but I don't know anything about that. It's all in the heart and the mind,
I remember, look, the album...
So in that sense, I was probably...
The album of yours that I'm still fascinated by, because I just love the album cover, is the Stargate. You could never... Oh, yeah. You could never be mistaken what you were going to get when you looked at the album cover on that one there. And you always reminded me of an artist, and I've said this about a few artists, but it's particularly true for you. You're an artist that always stood within your own truth. You were never afraid to be anybody else but yourself. And, I always admired that about you, because I know it's, you were always pegged as a black metal artist because of your history with Emperor. But that was a tiny fragment of your career. I think you're on the Wrath of the Tyrant.
It is. I mean, by now for sure. I mean, there's just so much has happened since I left Emperor in 1992. Wow, I mean, you still get like some people. It's a long time, but 26 years ago, almost like 25 and a half years ago now, to be precise. But I still do get the occasional person, coming up to me and going like, I don't like anything you've done, but I loved you in Old Emperor. I'm like, okay.
Oh God. Yeah.
Right. And I'm a polite person. I'm not going to go like, well, I don't need to hear that, because I don't, fuck it, man. I mean, I'm glad you liked something that I'm fucking, that I've been a part of. But at the same time, I mean, I could never have done that to someone else. Like, someone's been around for a long time and have done like a million records, and I'll go like, I don't like anything you've done except that one mini LP. That's my compliment to you. And I'm thinking, is that a compliment?
Yeah.
But, they're honest. It's fine. I don't fucking give a shit. But I find it a little bit odd,
Yeah, I've had a good chat to Ishan.
Behind that is.
Well, look, I've had a good chat to Ishan about things, actually, and talking to him, he's completely moved on, as you well know. His material these days has got more in common with Devon Townsend than it does with the old Emperor stuff. So even the guy who wrote a lot of the material has moved on from it. But you do get a lot of those black metal fanboys and girls who are stuck. Even though a lot of them weren't. This is the thing. I'm 40, so at least I was around back in those days, as in my late teens, early 20s. But a lot of these people weren't even around back then. But they hold on to that era like as if it's, the archetype of all things blackish and all things dark and doom. Yeah. But the artists themselves have, I think every artist, I've spoken to the guys in Satyricon, so Sigurd and Frost, Sartre and Frost, I should say. And I think even the guys in Marduk have moved on really a little bit. I know they're from Sweden, but they're a black metal behemoth, as we know. I can't think of one of the bands that was around back then that are still playing music in a similar vein to what they were performing back then. Everybody gets older and everybody evolves, including the fans, of course.
Still have the same fucked up extreme attitude that we all had when we... But, I mean, the thing is, I think people might forget is that we were like basically 17, 18 years old at the time. So you're not even properly developed mentally as a human being. So it's pretty natural that you're going to move on and mature and, to become a different person, as the years sort of pass by.
Yeah.
But some people don't really, they don't want to know about that. They just want to talk about the stuff that you did when you were literally in 1992, I was 17 years old. I mean, if that's the only thing you want to talk about, stuff that I did when I was 17. I did a lot of stupid shit when I was 17. I was an idiot when I was 17. There's no doubt about that. I mean, I said racist bullshit. I couldn't back that shit up. And I'm looking back, and it's fucking embarrassing.
But that's youth. That's the folly of youth.
That's what I'm getting at. But I'm not saying the black metal stuff was the folly of youth. I mean, that was basically fairly talented kids developing musical styles and unknowingly creating a genre that actually is still lasting to this day, which is that's a good thing about it.
It definitely...
A lot of the stupidity, of course, is not so
definitely, good. Yeah. Well, look, but I think people need to be pretty forgiving of that for the fact that you're 17 and you're being interviewed and you're trying to say things that are going to get you noticed in an era that there was no social media, there was barely an internet back then, so it was a completely different era, and a lot of journalists and fans...
And you had no understanding of consequence either. You just said extreme shit for the sake of being extreme. And everybody thought that was cool right there and then, and you were a little bit proud of yourself because you'd said something, got a bit of attention, and a few years later you go what the fuck was I thinking, Yeah.
Well,
but it's how it is,
Yeah, it is. And look, there's this tendency for journalists and fans to go onto Twitter and take things well out of context, isn't there? So badly out of context.
To this day.
Yeah,
still happens to this day, man. It's never going to stop. It's just just live with it. It's fuck it,
No, good on you. That's the only attitude to take.
Worried about it. Yeah,
that is. Yeah,
absolutely.
You said something really interesting though, outside of all of that, about the Fragile by 9 Inch Nails. You said that was one of the most influential albums on you as a musician, which I thought was, and I read the reasons why you went into it. And I agree with your reasoning actually, because that album truly confused me when it came out in 1999. Do you still feel the same way about the album, and is it still having an impact on you as a musician?
Well, I mean, it did for a long time, when I was trying to teach myself the whole sort of magic of layering sounds and creating new sounds from combining all kinds of stuff and just being really experimental. Then, as far as I'm concerned, I can't think of a cooler record. At the bottom of it, there's just all these really good songs. And they're all messed with in this really strange, fucking atmospheric and yet melodic way. So that one was big for me. I haven't listened to it in a while now because personally, with my music, I'm kind of in a different place right now with going back into my past and everything, which actually was happening before the Fragile existed, to be honest. So
yep.
But yeah, there was a period in time when I that record just sonically, it just kind of blew my mind every time I listened to it. It's so layered. There's so much strange stuff going on, so many interesting things. And it frustrates me too, because you listen to it again and again and again, and you try to figure out how did he do that, and how the fuck did he get that thing to sound that way?
Yeah.
But it's a lot of it. My experience is that there are so many happy accidents when you experiment with sound that a lot of it isn't planned. And I'm pretty sure it's the same thing with guys like Trent Reznor, Skinny Puppy guys, even Enigma and all those ultra classic, sonically mind blowing projects. You fuck around, man, and then something insane happens, and you keep it. A lot of times I think the best stuff isn't someone sitting down and going, okay, I'm going to make a sound that sounds like this, and then 5 minutes later you've done it.
Yeah, the spontaneous
I don't think
stuff.
it's like that.
Yeah.
Happy accidents,
He's an artist that I would love to see you collaborate with, and I think it's entirely doable, to be honest, and that's Al Jorgensen. What do you think about that?
That'd be great, man. I heard it's insane. So, but that's cool. You kind of got to be insane to be someone like Al Jorgensen, But dude, the guy's catalog is, unbelievable. So, and Ministry, obviously, when I heard Ministry, actually, I got more into. In the 90s, I had a bit of a transitional process. I was going from like black metal and really underground, hard, noisy industrial music, which was and like electronic, sort of pioneering electronic, Canyon Dream, stuff like that.
Okay, yeah.
Very atmospheric music. And I started to open myself a bit more to slightly different music. And stuff like Skinny Puppy, I had a bit of a hard time, and I didn't quite understand it. Same thing with The Prodigy and even Nine Inch Nails. It was, in the mid-'90s, to me, it was too much of a mutation of things. Mm-hmm. But Ministry worked almost immediately because it's a lot more sort of at the core. It's like no bullshit. It's this fucking angry, punky, metal, industrial stuff, and I thought that was great. It took me a couple more years to really understand stuff like, Skinny Puppy and Nine Inch Nails. So once I really started understanding those bands, I was a diehard fan, Same thing with like, that sort of British, I guess what they call, the media call it like big beat stuff, like, Fatboy Slim, Chemical Brothers, The Prodigy, of course, which I think is mind-blowing. Fat of the Land is like just the biggest sounding, most mean album you could ever imagine,
What's your favorite?
And it's a guy with a sampler.
What's your favorite Chemical Brothers album? Because I love those two guys. I love We Are the Night, the album that they released in 2007. I was just listening to it today, and that track, Do It Again, is just brilliant. And like what you're saying, I'm also a musician. I'm not an electronic musician. I play bass and bass guitar and electric guitar and acoustic guitar. Sorry, but I listened to some of their stuff and thinking, geez, I'd love to get in the headspace of understanding what they were trying to achieve, because every time I listen to it, even though I've listened to that track there, Do It Again, probably 100 times, I'm finding new things.
Yeah, that's what a good song is all about, I think. If you can hide good stuff in there and keep keeping it interesting,
Yeah, what is it?
To be honest,
You go. Sorry, mate. You're right.
Go. All right. No, To be honest, I kind of stopped listening to a lot of that stuff a while ago. So I haven't seen, not that I stopped listening, I just kind of stopped following for some reason I can't even explain. I just keep moving on with stuff.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
But I did buy their 4 or 5 first records by Chemical Brothers, and they did at one point I thought they went a little bit into techno land, and not that I had a lot against it, but I thought their early sound was more interesting. First album, and Dig Your Own Hole, block rocking beats and things like that, were, kind of like their hits, I suppose. I thought those were amazing, heavy, groovy, and just good fucking songs.
Yes.
I guess the same thing with The Prodigy. I kind of like, I'm one of those Fat of the Land guys, And some of the stuff that came after I thought was interesting, but I keep going back to like Smack My Bitch Up and stuff like that, So
that's a classic track.
I guess I'm a bit commercial in that sense.
Oh, no, it's a classic track.
And the video is amazing.
Oh, the video was the first time I'd really
disturbing.
Yeah, well, it was you've obviously seen the video many times as I have, but I remember the first time I saw it, the twist at the end was hilarious, as well as it was confounding.
Yeah. That girl has a really heavy night out on town, basically.
A hell of a heavy night out, no doubt.
Yeah. And what I heard later was Smack My Bitch Up is, maybe I'm out on a limb here, but apparently it's like some kind of slang for shooting up.
I heard that too.
It's a slang.
I heard the same thing too.
And it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me. Because you got to smack, man, to get the veins out and shit like that. I mean, not that I'm a big heroin guy, because I've never tried it. Never will, I hope. Yeah. But, apparently that's what you got to do. Well, that's cool, man. No morals at all, which is good.
Well, for art's sake, definitely. But I just talk about, there's one other artist who you mentioned who I'm so glad somebody as prominent as yourself actually gave him props, and that was Rob Zombie. and the White Zombie. And I think you either talked about Hellbilly Deluxe, and you made some really good comments about that, but I think you referenced Super Sexy Swingin' Sounds, which was the remix album that was released alongside of Astro Creep 2000 by White Zombie.
Yeah.
And I love that album, that remix album. I thought it was a phenomenal... I thought it was probably better than the Astro Creep 2000, to be quite honest with you. But
at least I would say, in my mind at least, pretty damn close as far as I'm concerned. But I mean, tastes do differ, you know. So I see what you mean.
Yeah, I just like the fact that you a lot of people, I think, Rob's very misunderstood. He's a very smart guy. He's a guy on my bucket list that I'd love to talk to. I've listened to his interviews with Jamie Jaster and also Eddie Trunk, and he's as sharp as a tack. And of course, he's a producer these days of video content. So he's got the House of a Thousand Corpses franchise and a few other things that he does. But musically, I've never felt he got enough credit for what he was trying to achieve musically. But you were really on point with your comments, which of course I can't recall right now because I read it a while ago. But I remember...
Me neither.
But I remember I think it was Hellbilly Deluxe, now that we're talking about it, that you actually referenced and said that you listened to that and you really tried to understand what he was trying to achieve with the production.
Yeah, it's Hellbilly Deluxe is again, I mean, I think the sound on that is so big and so sort of bad in a good way. It's just this sort of big bad monster of a there's a wall of sound, which I like because it means it's layered with all kinds of interesting stuff. And when you got guys like Charlie Clouser doing all your sort of like sample and programming work, I mean, it's going to be it's going to be a monster of a record. And and then Charlie Clouser, of course, as we know from Nine Inch Nails, and been doing tons of stuff with Manson and stuff like that. Every time he touches something, I kind of feel like it turns into gold,
Yeah,
and that's probably one of the reasons you like Super Sexy Swinging Sounds. I'm listening now too. Sounds.
You're right.
I'm pretty sure he's got a few remixes on that one, and then of course there's American Made Music to Strip By, which I believe is the Hellbilly Deluxe remix album. He's got like 4 or 5 remixes on that one. He'd like the Dragula, all the Rob Zombie stuff. Most of it that you'll hear if you were watching any kind of like the Matrix type of movie back in the turn of the century. There would be a lot of Rob Zombie soundtracks featured, and from my memory, I mean, most of those were just the Charlie Clouser remixes. Again and again. I mean, they sound fucking fantastic, and just that guy makes keyboard sound wicked. Like heavy and dense, and just like groovy.
Yeah.
So, I was just like with Nine Inch Nails and even like Enigma, Skinny Puppy, all those guys they're sound designers, So I would spend like long evenings on end, just sort of looping little snippets from songs where I'm trying to find out like how the fuck did you make that sound happen? Again, that's what we come back to. But of course, I mean, Rob Zombie's music, I think is it's like. I don't know. It's like beyond metal.
Oh, it's disco metal. That's really what it is. If I could label it anything, it's got this great,
Okay, yeah.
It's got this great beat to it.
It's danceable, I guess. I mean, bump and grind. I mean, not that I don't do the strip club thing anymore, of course. But I mean, back in the day, I mean, you would get some Rob Zombie stuff coming on those speakers too, because they're again. I mean, I go back to the word groovy, which I think is the same as danceable, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, I better make this my last question because I know you've got another interview coming up in about 10 minutes' time.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But you were with Earache Records for a period of time there. Did you?
Yeah.
How was Digby like to work with? Did he? I mean, I haven't heard anything otherwise. So I'm asking the question with an open mind. But would you work with him again? Do you think?
Looking at the content of my previous contract, and if that was going to be the kind of content he would offer me again, then I would rather burn in hell.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, here's the thing, like Digby, you didn't really talk to him that much. He was in the background. I mean, you would basically be communicating with any other person really on Earache Records than Digby. Once you sign a contract, he kind of disappears. At least that was my impression. You would talk to guys like Dan Tobin, who's the, and I don't know now, but I'm pretty sure he's still the label manager, and he's a good guy. I mean, he's not the guy that kind of draws up the contract and kind of reels you in and locks you down.
Yeah.
But I mean, my fault for signing that dumb deal. We tried to negotiate it, but I mean, they were pretty hardcore, and that was back in the day when I was getting nothing but rejection letters from every goddamn label on the planet. So it was pretty much a question of like, okay, do I want to keep remaining super underground, or do I want to try my luck with a label like Earache, where I know at least the distribution and my my promotional, my PR would skyrocket. I mean, and then I knew that, and that's why I signed. I knew I was going into a pretty bad deal. But on the plus side, I mean, they did get my name out there to beyond any way that my name had ever been out before. So I'll give them credit for that. I mean, it did make me quite well known over a quite short period of time, and then the kind of the PR level remained quite stable for as long as I was there. I mean, it might have fallen down, but towards the end, because our relationship soured at the end. I mean, there's no reason to deny that it was not great towards the end. That's kind of when I think they slowly started shutting off the money went away. They did nothing to sort of promote me the last couple of years. I would say,
because you were with him for about 15 years, weren't you?
I'm sorry?
You were with Earache for about 15 years, if I'm not mistaken, or 12 to 15 years.
No, not at all. I mean, I signed probably in late 1999 or 98. I'm sorry.
Oh, right, okay.
And
so the Stargate was the first one.
Yeah, so we put the Stargate out, then the Snow Rain, then the Grudge, and there was like some singles, a DVD, a remix album, some reissues. So around 2005, technically my deal was up. And I pretty much went as an independent for many, many years after that, and toured, financed my own tours, and just kind of did everything on my own. I became very sort of anti-label at that point because I really had very little in terms of positive experiences. I never made any money. I mean, a lot of labels, they'll kind of they'll angle the contracts in such a way that it takes forever to recoup. Mm-hmm. They'll just keep all the fucking money. And your royalty rates are low, and so it takes an eternity for you to recoup. You have to sell a lot of records.
Yeah, indeed.
So I mean, yeah. So it's no joke when bands say the only way that I can make money is by selling T-shirts at shows. Because of course going on tour costs money too, and who's going to pay for that fun? It's going to be the band once again.
Yeah, actually, I noticed Bleed Records are actually selling your, or the people that are putting on the tour. I think you said his name was Martin. They're actually selling the tour T-shirt right now. So I hope you get some.
Yeah,
of that.
Yeah. I mean, Martin is my guy. So we're in the same bed, so to speak. So there's no worries there.
No, great, no, fantastic.
He's keeping a tab, and I'm getting paid. It's not like it's all. What's the fucking word?
It's all above board. No, I thought it was great.
It's all good, it's all legal. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was great because there's been too many tours I've missed and I love when an artist tours or is coming through and they have a T-shirt and they have the dates on the back, because I don't wear them. I just keep them as mementos. And might give them to my sister-in-law or something like that, But I really like it, and that's lovely to see that the effort has gone to it. It's a nice T-shirt, by the way, as well. It looks like there's been some good effort that's gone into it.
Yeah, I'm pretty controlling in that sense. I like to stay on top of what stuff looks like before I approve it. I mean, that goes down to even like flyers and online promo material, any design like that. Sometimes people do jump the gun, and then I'll see what they've done, and I'll go like, what the fuck are you doing? Take that away. Here's a good photo. Here's a good logo. Now start again.
Yes.
But that's the way it is, man. Some people they jump the gun on it, and they learned Photoshop last week, and it's going to be what it is, But then, I try to sort of keep an eye out for horrible artwork and kill it if I can. So
yeah. Gosh, mate, there's plenty more questions, and there's a lot more that I want to talk to you about, but I better let you go and get a cup of tea or something like that until this lass from New Zealand calls you. But it's been fascinating to have a chat with you finally after all of these years, mate.
Yeah, thank you, man. Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it.
When you're playing in Brisbane, you're playing in Brisbane on July the 26th, and I have no idea what day of the week that would be, but hopefully that's a day that I'm free, mate, and I can get along to the show.
Yeah, try to show up, man. That'd be cool to hook up.
Yeah, indeed, mate. Well, thank you very much for making the music that you've made, and congratulations on the career as well, and good luck for the tour.
Thank you very much. Hopefully I'll see you down there.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed that conversation. I enjoyed participating in it. So if you like that one, there are many more just like it over at scarsandguitars.com. And if you like listening, maybe you like reading, because I've written a book about the podcast. Click on the link in the banner on the website. You'll be taken to a marketplace of your choice, and you can download a sample. And if you do complete the purchase, I want to thank you personally, so please do hit me up. I've got some more information to share with you about the book in the moment, but before we get to that, I need to bid you a fond farewell. My name is Andrew Mackay-Smith, and I'm the host of the Scars and Guitars podcast series. Until next time, it is a very goodbye for now.
This is Earache of Cannibal Corpse. You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast with Andrew Mackay-Smith.
I've been the host of the Scars and Guitars podcast since 2017. The first musician I interviewed for the show was David Vincent from Morbid Angel, and things have just snowballed from there. In all, I've posted almost 650 podcast episodes featuring conversations with many of the leading lights of rock, heavy metal, and beyond. It just got to a point where I thought, I need to write a book about all this, so that's exactly what I did. In Scars and Guitars Volume 1, you'll read a heap of deep reveals and commentary, such as Des Fafara talking about Coal Chamber and why the band will never return.
You know, if you're a band just starting out, you need to hear me. Do not start a band with partners. Ever.
Yeah, wise words there. Sage advice, mate, for anybody.
Don't ever, because I can't go do Coal Chamber right now unless I get others involved.
Phil Anselmo talks about the episode in his career which gives him the greatest sense of accomplishment.
I think the staying power of the fans and the staying power of the songs, you know, whether it's Pantera, Down, or Superjoint, the fans remember the songs.
Alex Skolnick from Testament confirms that, yes, playing the guitar in Ozzy's band is anything but an ordinary gig. Will Silent Oz from Dimmu Borgir write a book? Pa from Sabaton gives advice to people who want to start a band.
Look at the team around you, look at the bandmates. If the guys want to be on the stage, then it's all cool. If the guys want to be backstage, then it's not going to be cool.
Current and former members of Cradle of Filth discuss the band's seminal 90s material. Read about the reaction to George Lynch and Mark from Suicide Silence's comments when they throw shade at then President Donald Trump.
We have this idiotic monster, you know, this egotistical, self-aggrandizing, complete piece of shit in there. I just can't understand how we've gotten to this place.
And yeah, we kicked a hornet's nest with Sepultura. Percussive overlord Gene Hoglan talks about recording with Chuck Schuldiner.
Chuck was always, he was very open-minded, and he was into having his musicians that were playing with him just reach out for the best stuff that they had.
Phil Campbell from Motorhead discusses what it takes to get sober. John Five answers his critics who dismiss his tenure with Marilyn Manson.
You know, my name is John Five, and Manson gave me that name, and I had some of the best years of my life in that band and learned a lot.
And we get the lowdown on Treyarch Zagtoth from those who would know, including his mother. All across Scars and Guitars Volume 1, there are moments of tension, relief, tragedy, exhilaration, and throughout it all, you'll obtain insight that I believe no one else has managed to obtain from many of your favourite artists. So treat yourself. Scars and Guitars Volume 1 is currently available as an ebook with a print edition on the horizon. Follow the links attached and download a sample. I'm sure you'll be compelled to read the whole book.